Guys, we finally have Boruto chapter 84 in full, and let's just say that it's one of the most consequential chapters in the history of this manga. First, we have the reveal of 4 brand new villains with insanely overpowered abilities, along with Sasuke being a prisoner of the Ten Tails in the form of a tree. But it doesn't even end there, because we also have Boruto unveiling the 4th Hokage's signature technique known as the Flying Thunder God. So we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. So the title of the chapter is called Awakening, which is very fitting for the chapter itself, because that's basically what happens in this chapter. A lot of awakening going on. But the cover itself features Kawaki, and he isn't really relevant in this chapter, so we might need to look out for him in the upcoming chapter. But this chapter pretty much picks up where we started off, with Code in the Ten Tails dimension looking at the Ten Tails itself. So we see that Code is recalling what Boruto said to him about the Ten Tails in the prior chapter, that they were transformed because of him, and also that he's gonna lose control and he needs to get rid of them before that happens. And even though Code is somewhat considering this and he's looking at the Ten Tails, he still dismisses the argument itself and says that this thing only has the instinct to eat, so how is this a threat? And that's when we see that the toad on Code's body has one of the ornaments Boruto had on his clothing. He then said to Boruto, "Hurry up, we have no time left." Boruto then replied saying, "Can you be a little? I'm not skillful like my grandpa." And that's when Boruto says, "Found it. Flying Thunder God technique." And we see Boruto teleport to the Ten Tails dimension instantly. Now this is pretty good, because what it confirms is that when Boruto instantly arrived at the village in chapter 1, this is what he used to stomp on Code's face. And also during the battle with Code, when Boruto teleported behind Code instantly, he also used Flying Thunder God in that instance. Now you guys might argue that Boruto didn't use the hand sign in that moment, but you don't necessarily need to perform the hand signs to use Flying Thunder God, as seen with Minato in the original series. Now I do think it depends on the distance between you and your destination. So if you're teleporting to a different dimension or somewhere very far away, you probably need to charge up your chakra using the hand sign. But if it's somewhere close by, you don't need to use the hand sign. So I think that's pretty simple. Oh, and one more thing, Boruto did say that he's not as skilled as Minato, so that's one thing to keep in mind when referring to how Boruto uses the technique going forward. So we see that Boruto arrives in the dimension beside Code, and he just walks past him to look on the Ten Tails. I find this funny because Boruto doesn't see Code as a threat in any way, and it might be arrogance, it might be ignorance, but it might be that the story is just setting up Code to not be the villain, which I think somewhat plays out later on in this chapter. But he's still a sleazeball, don't get that wrong. So Boruto looks and he sees that the Ten Tails is missing. One thing to point out is that the Ten Tails was just there a few seconds ago. So something happened between the time Boruto was told to hurry up and Boruto using the technique itself, and it also seems like Code didn't notice that the Ten Tails he was just looking at went missing. With that being said, we then switch back to Boruto's perspective, and he finally notices that there's someone stuck within a tree. The toad then said that it's hard to think that Code transported the Ten Tails. There wasn't any suspicious moves, he shouldn't have much ease to do it. And that's when Code notices the toad itself, and he says this toad is. Of course, Code would be aware of Kashin Kochi's toad, since they were both members of Kara. Now I'd say that this is where we get into the most interesting part of this chapter, with the reveal of brand new villains. So we have this guy standing atop the Ten Tails containment cell, and this guy has a Renegon, along with Code's claw marks on his face. Boruto then notices the guy and says, "Damn it, we were late." Code then looked upon the villain in shock, saying bug, and then he switched back to a panel of bug being fused with the tree. Now this was done for a very specific reason, and that's because they want to differentiate between the bug being stuck in the tree and this cloned version of bug. I think this was done because Code instantly refers to the being as bug, which means that this being or entity probably has bug's chakra signature. But the entity still isn't the real bug, so they had to differentiate between the two by showing us that bug is still alive within the tree itself. This is backed up by Boruto saying that you're talking about the guy that's been a tree behind. Is that bug that you're referring to? He then says that this is not bug. What we are encountering is Shinju. And by the way, just to clarify, Shinju is referring to the Ten Tails or Jubi, whichever translation you want to use. Now before Boruto could fully explain what's going on to Code and the audience, the enemy attacked Boruto and flew directly into him, pushing him into the wall behind him. Now I will say that this feat is pretty insane because Boruto couldn't react react to the enemy flying into him. Now he did block it with his hands, but he couldn't move out of the way. So this implies that this enemy is pretty fast and also pretty strong if he's able to push Boruto back by that much. Now what's very interesting here is that this clone, or Ten Tails clone, can speak, which is also similar to the clawgram we saw before. Now then says that coming here on your own, you came to be feasted, Otsutsuki Boruto. Then we see that Boruto uses this lightning style technique to shock the entity, and it does do significant damage to some degree because the entity does have scars on its body from the attack itself. Though it does seem that the entity didn't suffer any internal damages because it just attacked Boruto immediately afterwards using this body modification jutsu type structure. So it's able to turn its hand into this dragon-like construct, which is very similar to Kawaki's technique, though it seems to be amplified to some degree. Now it wasn't able to land the hit on Boruto because it seems like Boruto used Flying Thunder God to escape and appear beside Code. We know this because the entity says that's some sneaky jutsu. So once again it shows that Boruto is able to use Flying Thunder God in close quarters without using hand signs. So that's basically proven in this chapter. Now Code doesn't know what's going on, so he's asking Boruto to explain it to him, and we see Code fall to the ground because he's still affected by Rasengan Uzuhiko. But it seems like Boruto made a strategic decision to release Code from the effects of Rasengan Uzuhiko so that he could help him in battle. So Boruto then says, stand up, I deactivated Uzuhiko, prepare for the enemy's attack. I don't have time to explain, if you don't want to die, shut up and support me. But it seems like Boruto didn't hear a single thing Code said because he continued to ask him questions. So it's like, what happened to the Ten Tails? Does it have something to do with Bug that was eaten by the tree? Boruto then says that it's not only Bug, all the others, everyone that turned into a tree is involved in this. And that's when we get the introduction of another villain in the sky. He replied saying it's Chakra. He then said that the lives on this planet, the lives that perished that lived on this planet, it sucks in all chakra. The lives have we Shinju make a chakra fruit that was originally our instinct. Now I want to point out that the language itself is somewhat broken and it could be mistranslated, but it could also be that the Ten Tails is trying to speak but it doesn't fully grasp the concept of language. So I think that might be happening here, but it's basically explaining what the Ten Tails does. It absorbs the chakra from a planet and it makes a chakra fruit. That's basically what it's saying here. But it then said something interesting. So it said, but Code, it seems like we degenerated a bit from being awakened by you, us having ego. And that's when the third villain walked in saying, how pity Code, thinking back you're always like that despite your will. Your destiny is to be a clown being used by someone at a laughable extent. And that's when we see the fourth entity that Boruto seems to be interested in. Now we then skip over to Kawaki and Sarada having this argument in the Okage office. So Shikamaru says he suddenly disappeared. You're saying that he already has space-time ninjutsu? And Kawaki replied saying, who knows, I don't know how he did it, but Boruto disappeared after Code ran away. It seems like he was tracking him. Shikamaru then asked him, are you saying that the purpose Boruto came to the Hidden Leaf today is because Code was his target? Kawaki then asked him, is it possible that Boruto and Code are connected? Before Boruto disappeared, it seems like he had a conversation with someone. Don't tell me that it's someone from the detecting team. Of course they're referring to the sensory team. Shikamaru then says that all the reports from the sensory team is currently under inspection. If someone is actually supporting Boruto, we will know instantly. Now this part is kinda weird for me because of course Kawaki is trying to pin Boruto to Code even though he knows that Boruto isn't working with Code, right? Kawaki knows this, but you can see that he's kinda leading the conversation in a way that connects Boruto to Code and makes it seem like Boruto was working with Code. So Kawaki is pretty slimy, I will say. That's a pretty slimy move. But of course Sarada is there to correct him, so she says how stupid. Things are more simple than that. She then says that Code ambushed the Hidden Leaf village. Boruto forced him to retreat. From the conversations that they had, it is so obvious. You can confirm with Ada. Kawaki then replied saying, Sarada, don't misunderstand things. Boruto is Otsutsuki. Doesn't matter what his purpose is. He's an enemy we gotta kill because he's an Otsutsuki. Sarada then replied saying, you're also the same. What are you saying? Kawaki then says, it is something that I don't have to say, but I'm an Otsutsuki that kills them. You see, my power only exists to kill them. He then says that if the job is done, I'll be happy to disappear, but you don't get to choose. You understand, don't you? But Sarada replied saying, don't make me repeat. I won't let you do as you like here, as I'm a ninja that aims to become Hokage. Shikamaru then opted in saying, guys, settle down before I get pissed off as the Hokage in charge right now. He then says about the tree, which is a damage from the claw grime, what's this all about? Are they trying to make a forest? Sarada replied saying, I don't know, but at least the people that turned into a tree is still alive. There might be a way to save them. She then says from the way he spoke, it's just my impression, but Boruto probably knows something about it. She then says that regardless of Boruto's purpose, it's certain that he is an enemy for Code. For now, since Code is the threat to the Hidden Leaf Village, we should support Boruto and defeat Code. Now I will say that it's very brave for Sarada to go up against Kawaki because she knows that he doesn't value her life in any way whatsoever. He already tried to kill her multiple times, and to her knowledge, Kawaki did kill Naruto and Hinata, so that's what she knows. Now of course Kawaki isn't going to kill Sarada out in the open in front of everyone, but he could technically seal her away using Daikokuten and then blame it on Code, saying that he came back using a claw grime and took her away. So it's pretty easy for Sarada to get disposed of, but it doesn't seem like Kawaki is particularly interested in doing that at this time. Now we then switch over back to Boruto, Code and the Ten Tails clones, right? And Code is basically asking, yo, a Shinju with ego, how is that possible? And that's when one of the entities decided to attack Boruto. Now we first see that he's able to use Code's claw mark ability, which he uses to teleport beside Boruto. He's then able to modify his hand into a slashing weapon, which is very similar to what Kawaki is able to do with his body. So that part is very important and we're going to get to that soon. Now in addition to being able to use the claw marks and modify his body, it seems like this one is able to use lightning release or the Chidori. Now Boruto was able to counter him using the Rasengan, so he wasn't really damaged by the attack. But the clone that looks like Bug used the opportunity to attack Boruto using his body modification, but Boruto stopped it using his sword. That's when we see that Boruto is engulfed with Earth style or Earth release, and we see that the entity that looks like a female is walking towards him, so it seems like that's her ability. Now this part is very important because it seems like all of these entities, all the enemies we're facing in this chapter, all have the abilities of someone from Boruto, and they also look like them in some way. Now the first one, Code referred to that one as Bug. Now this seems like Code noticed this based on the chakra signature emitted from the entity itself. And the entity also looks like Bug with the shape of his head, his beard, and also his height. Now the one that looks like a female looks very similar to Moegi based on the hairstyle that she has. And it also seems like she has the same ability as Moegi because she's able to use Earth style to hold on to Boruto, and it's the same ability Moegi used on Amado when he first came to the village. So I think what this means is that Moegi was attacked by one of the claw grimes during the attack on the village and she was turned into a tree. Now the third one with the hood does look like Sasuke. We saw that based on his physical appearances during his fight with Boruto, and he also possesses the Chidori or lightning release, and he uses it with his left hand similar to Sasuke. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, Sasuke is indeed a tree, so there seems to be some consistency there. Bug was turned into a tree and it seems like this one resembles Bug. Then we have Sasuke who also got turned into a tree and this one resembles Sasuke and uses his abilities. And then we have the other one which looks like Moegi, and we can assume that she was also turned into a tree as well. Now there is another one that looks more so like Jigen and maybe Shiki or somewhat like Kawaki, and I don't know how it got that information, but it could be, as I theorized in my prior videos, that while Code isn't a eligible vessel and can't be Otsutsukified by Ishiki's karma, Ishiki's data is still within the karma seal itself. So it does seem like some of that data, maybe some of the chakra leaked out into these claw grimes and they're able to replicate Ishiki's look using that information. Now in regards to them being able to modify their bodies, it could be that when the Ten Tails grabbed onto Kawaki in I think chapter 2, it's possible that it did absorb some of Kawaki's chakra, thus gaining some of Kawaki's abilities as well. Now this would be pretty OP if it just needs to absorb chakra and doesn't need to turn you into a tree, but there is some precedent for it with the White Zetsu from Naruto Shippuden. Now these guys were able to like grab onto someone, then absorb their chakra, thus being able to replicate their chakra signature. This then allowed them to transform into the person physically and have access to their memories. Now they didn't have access to their abilities, which might be the difference between that Ten Tails that created those White Zetsus and this Ten Tails, so that part is very interesting. Now there is more to talk about, but I'm going to save it for an actual video that goes in depth on these guys to explain how they got their powers and how it makes sense. So let's look out for that video and we're going to move on with the chapter. Now we left off when Boruto was attacked by the female entity, and we see that Boruto says to Code, give me a hand, you're also gonna get killed. Code then replied saying that even if I don't do anything, they on their own are trying to become a complete Shinju by eating you. This is out of the blue, but haha, not bad. Feels like one of the burden on my shoulder is gone. And that's when Code escapes using his claw mark. So Code basically betrays Boruto because Boruto thought for some reason that Code was gonna help him. Rookie mistake, but it does seem like Boruto sees some sort of potential in Code for some reason, but I guess it will play out in that way based on what happens in this chapter. Now the toad that's talking to Boruto says, Boruto, enough, run from here as soon as possible. If you die, everything will be a waste. And that's when we see Boruto using Flying RAIJIN or Flying Thunder God, using his hand sign to escape from the dimension. And that's when we skip to the weirdo that has the weird hairstyle that looks like Kawaki in some way. And he basically says, you are lucky, Otsutsuki Boruto, or ego has just awakened. Hold on, this is a villain monologue, guys, so let me just put on the voice real quick. Or ego has just awakened. The curiosity and desire for knowledge flowing out is still surpassing our instincts of eating you. Flee wherever you like. Wherever you are in this world, you can never get away from your destiny. Okay, I tried my best. Guys, okay? Don't laugh, it's fine, you know. I always wanted to do that, so let's just get it out. But, moving on, we see Boruto leaning up against a tree, and of course we know what's coming here. We see this mysterious figure walking up to Boruto saying, you want to instantly destroy this planet? Don't push yourself like that ever again. Boruto then says, sorry, I rushed. And that's when you see that the mysterious figure is Kashin Koji. He then says, I'm not trying to calm you down, but you should have known that this was going to happen at a high probability. What we're going to do hasn't changed. We're going to fight. Boruto then looks up and says, sorry, I need you to wait a little bit more. And that's when it's revealed that Sasuke is in fact a tree. And that's where the chapter itself ends. Now a lot was revealed in this chapter in regards to Boruto having Flying Thunder God, the new enemies, 4 new enemies, not just 1, and of course Sasuke being revealed as sealed in a tree. So this chapter was really good. I give it a 10 out of 10. We got a lot of information I can work with. Of course, I'm going to work on multiple videos for you guys. First, I'm going to look into these villains, explain how exactly they got their powers, link it back to what we saw in Naruto with the white Zetsus, and also the Ten Tails itself, because I think that part is very, very relevant. Also, I didn't point out in the chapter itself that all of these entities possess renegades. That part is very important. Now, it could be that the Renegon itself came from the Ten Tails because the Ten Tails does possess a Renegon, so it does make sense that it's able to give Renegons to the other users, even Renegons that doesn't possess the Tomoes, even though the Renegon that the Ten Tails possesses does have a Tomoe. We don't know how it works exactly, so it is possible. Now, what's also possible is that it did take some of Sasuke's genetic data or some of his chakra and then used that to create additional Renegons from Sasuke's chakra and gave it to the other clones. I don't see why it would need to do that when the Ten Tails itself has a Renegon. Why not take your own chakra to do that if you're capable of replicating Renegons? So I'm on the side that these Renegons came directly from the Ten Tails and not Sasuke, but it doesn't really matter either way, so that's fine. With that being said, let me know your thoughts on the chapter itself. Do you think it was a good chapter? I give it a 10 out of 10. If you have any issues you want to discuss, drop it in the comment section and also join the Discord so we can discuss it there as well. That is all, so I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.